What up, YouTube? Dark Dove coming at you with another Redstone video. This is episode 2 of the Redstone University, where we're going to talk about how to run redstone lines. It can be a little harder than you think. I've seen people have some difficulties, so let's get into it. Okay, so here's a torch, and here's a redstone line, and that line coming off of this torch takes power all the way 15 blocks away. That's full strength. You can do the same thing with the lever. I will say, if you wanted to have this as your input, which is where the power comes in, you flip that, that would be your input. If you want that to come in like that, if you want a torch to run off of it, you can't just touch the line with the torch. That's going to make that torch power this line. What you would want to do is, you would want to maybe raise that line, and then run your torch off of the block that the line is on. Or you could run that line into a block, and what that's going to do is this is going to power that block, and that block being powered, then the torch takes power from that block. Now that brings us to a concept that you kind of need to know about. I don't know who named it this. I learned this from Mumbo Jumbo, but it's called, when you power a block, it's either soft powered or it's hard powered. Check this out. You flip this, that's soft powered, so it will change the torch, but notice how it's not affecting that line there. Whereas you flip this with the repeater running into it, and not only does it affect the torch, it also affects the line next to it. It will affect any block around it, so it will even power things underneath it. Also, a block on top of a torch is hard powered because the redstone line will take from it. Now, one caveat here: just because it's soft powered doesn't mean you can't get any power out of it. Like I said, it affects the torch. Well, it also affects a repeater, so the repeater can draw from that, and also a comparator can draw from it as well. Okay, now here's one I see people do wrong all the time, and it comes from that exact same concept. You want to take this torch and run power from it, but you want to do it up. So you put that on there. Well, this torch hard powers that line, and this takes from it, but then this activates this line, which then turns that off, and it's back and forth until the torch gives out. Okay, so one way to split a line, if you want one up and one down, and you want them to be completely separate lines but running off the same power source, this hits that block, hard powers it, which runs the line on top and the line on bottom. This being hard powered, that will take charge from it. You can do the same thing with a comparator if you put it here, and what it does is, instead of giving full power to both of these lines, it'll just give the same power out the front that it got out the back. But since it's pretty much full power because of how close that is, there you go. Another thing you can do with this, though, is you can put a block here with something into it. Let's go a block down, block out. Let's go ahead and throw a repeater into that, so that's full charge. Put them into subtract mode and add power here, and now it's locked. Another way to split the redstone line horizontally is, instead of putting your repeater there into a block, you just throw a slab at that block, and when you flip the lever, they both go. Now you can also use glowstone, and it works just the same. Let me show you. One caveat whereas you can power the top line and it will not power this input line. If you power this bottom line, it will power this input line and the top line as well. Okay, and here's another one. If you've got a big redstone project going on, you got like a wall of redstone lines here that you can't cross for some reason, and you need to get a line from one side to the other, what you can do is you go ahead and let's act like this line's right in line with another one. So yeah, let's go to that one. So you got this line running here, and how on earth am I going to get this across? Well, let me just tell you, you put a repeater right here, and then you'll drop down one to where you're running right into the side of that block. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run into it with redstone dust, and that's going to soft power that line. And because you soft powered it instead of hard powering it, what's going to happen when you light this, it doesn't affect any of that. You can turn it on, leave it on. This one will still work perfect. You can turn this one on and off independently of each other, and they don't affect one another. And the way you pull out of this one is you come over and you run a repeater straight out of that block, and what that does is that draws power from the soft powering that you just did there. So now when I flip this, that repeater will draw, and there you go, you just cross that wall. About the piston. So there's one thing about the piston that I wanted to let you know. If you use the piston a lot, so you've got a line, and you go ahead and power that, and the piston will power. Piston will empower. Okay, if you've got a redstone line above that, it says right above the piston. Okay, let's go ahead and put this line in. If this line's on, you ain't turning that one off. If that line's off, it's cool. If that line's on, you can turn this one on. You just can't turn it back off while that one's on. It has to what's called receive a block update. So if you have anything with a lot of pistons in it and it suddenly stops working for some reason, look around and make sure you don't have a redstone line running right above it. So say you're running wires down here and you want the line to be way up there in the sky, and you've got a very limited space to do that in. There are a few ways you can do that. Okay, you can do what's called a torch tower, and you basically just do like this as high up as you need, and you block torch, block torch, block torch kind of deal. Now when you do this, it's not instant at all. So let's bust out a lamp real quick, put that on top so you can get the idea of the time that this takes. So it's not an extreme amount of time. You see that didn't go right away. I even have time to look up and see it turn. So each one of these torches takes what is known as a tick. That's the smallest amount of time in the game. It is 1/10 of a second. So 10 of these will take a second to run. Same thing happens with a repeater. They take a tick. That would be 2 ticks. That would be 3 ticks. That would be 4 ticks. Okay, here I'm going to show you an example of timing. Now in the dispenser I have a water bucket, and you'll notice if you push the button, it spits the water out. You push the button again, it takes the water back up. Okay, you can do this with the push of one button. You can make it do twice. If you want it to, you've got to use proper timing. Okay, so let's go ahead, and this one is going to be on 1 tick, and then we'll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of these will be on 4 ticks. So that'd be 20 ticks. And then when I push this button here, that should spit out and then draw right back in. Like so. Okay, so if you want to go up but you want it to take less time and you've got a little extra space, you can do that with slabs. So let's come out one, do like so. That's got to be a top slab, because if it's a bottom slab, redstone won't go on it. Tap away, it will not go on it. So let's leave the redstone off for now, and what you're going to do is you're going to 1, 2, 1 out like this, and if you'll notice, it goes back and forth on these. Now, one thing about this, if you decide to try to power it from up above, the power will not go down. It'll go up, but it won't go down. And you can just keep running this up as long as your line keeps power. So 15 blocks from the source is when it'll stop, and then you'll have to recharge the line. I busted these out because you can do the same thing with glowstone. Same exact way, in every shape, in every way, shape, and form. And you hit that, it goes all the way up. They act just like slabs, and it will not go down, just like a slab. The thing about the glowstone is, though, it cannot be powered itself, so you cannot take charge off of it. You got that there? So if that were a regular block, this torch would be off. Okay, so there are a few ways to make your redstone go downward. The only way to do it without using any time is to just, or without adding any ticks, is pretty much just, stare yourself down. That's ugly, that takes up a lot of space. If you don't want to take up all this space, you can use torches. It's not as small as using them to go up, but if you'll notice, this torch here lights that, which you can then just continue on down. Put a torch on him, have him come here. He's going to power that one. So dust, dust, torch. And that line's on when that line's on, or when that torch is on. And then let's put that over there. And this line down here is going to have the same power as this line up here. It does take a moment, but it gets down there. So another way to make a redstone signal travel down is to use observers. So you got this dust on here, it'll observe what happens on its face there. So when that gets turned, it's going to power this block. And from powering this block, we can then, and it's hard powered too, so what it'll do is it'll then power that dust, which this observer will see, and it will hard power this block. And then that dust. And let's see, let's get this observer here. And then that observer there will take it, power this. And as you see how I'm doing these lines here, but watch closely, because just like up here, when I flip that, it only flashes. You would have to add a circuit down here. It flashes so fast that it won't even activate a torch. Watch this. We nothing on that torch, but you can add a repeater. Now, just adding a repeater I don't think works. I think you have to yeah, I think if you give any amount of additional ticks it'll work, though, like 2, 3, or 4. Yeah. So observers are a little funky. We'll do an episode mainly on observers later. The next episode we're going to do is on circuitry. There are a few circuits like what's called a T flip-flop, which would have made this observer stay in the same state as what the lever had it in. We'll show you some of the more readily used circuits in the next video, some that you really probably will like to have. If you like this, if it taught you anything, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what I may have missed, and I'll see you next time. Peace.